I was at the hospital, in the middle of my 12-hour shift, when my phone buzzed with a message from Juniper, my 10-year-old daughter. I read the words and my blood ran cold on the spot. Mom, my stepmom hit me because I didn't want to wash her dishes. Dad saw everything and didn't say anything. She had no idea who she was messing with. 40 minutes later, I pulled my car up to my ex-husband's gate and banged on the door hard. When that woman opened it and saw what I was holding in my hand, her face lost all its color. Let me back up a little so you understand exactly how I got to that door, holding what I was holding, ready to do what I was about to do. My name is Sloan. I'm a nurse at Mercy General. Been there for 8 years now. I work in the ER, which means I've seen pretty much everything a human body can go through. Broken bones, stab wounds, overdoses, heart attacks, you name it. I don't shock easily. I've learned to keep my cool when everything around me is falling apart. But that message from Juniper, that broke through every wall I'd built. My ex-husband Fletcher and I split up 3 years ago. It wasn't pretty, but we managed to work out a custody arrangement that seemed fair at the time. Juniper would stay with him every other week. He'd remarried about a year after our divorce to a woman named Corinne. Younger than me by almost 10 years, worked in some boutique downtown, always dressed like she was going to brunch with celebrities. I didn't like her, but I kept my mouth shut for Juniper's sake. My daughter deserved to have peace, not drama. But Corinne never treated Juniper right. I could see it in the small things. The way my daughter would come back to my place quieter than usual. The way she'd flinch when I asked about her week at Dad's house. She never said anything directly, just little comments here and there. Corinne says I'm messy. Corinne told Dad I'm lazy. Corinne thinks I should help more around the house. I'd asked Fletcher about it twice. Both times he brushed me off, said I was being paranoid, that Corinne was just trying to teach Juniper responsibility. He accused me of being jealous. That's what he always did, turned everything back on me, made me the villain. So I stopped asking. I told Juniper to call me any time, day or night, if she needed me. I made sure she knew I was always on her side. That Tuesday afternoon, I was wrapping up a gunshot wound in Bay 3 when my phone buzzed in my scrubs pocket. I normally don't check my phone during a shift, but something made me glance at the screen. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way the universe works when your child is in danger. I saw Juniper's name and my stomach dropped before I even opened the message. The patient I was treating kept talking. Something about how the guy who shot him was going to pay, how he wasn't going to let this slide. All that street bravado you hear in the ER every single day. I wasn't listening anymore. My hands kept working, tying off the bandage, cleaning up, but my brain had left the room. All I could see were those words on my screen. Mom. My stepmom hit me because I didn't want to wash her dishes. Dad saw everything and didn't say anything. I finished with the patient, stripped off my gloves, and walked straight to the attending physician. Dr. Ramona Chen, tough as nails, didn't take excuses from anyone. I told her I had a family emergency and needed to leave immediately. She looked at my face and didn't ask questions, just nodded and told me to go. I didn't change out of my scrubs, didn't clock out properly, didn't tell anyone else I was leaving. I just grabbed my bag from my locker, and that's when I saw it. The thing I'd kept in there for 2 years, just in case. Just in case of what? I never really knew, until that moment. Sitting on the top shelf of my locker was a file folder, thick, stuffed with papers. The file I'd compiled after the divorce, the one I'd told myself I'd never actually need to use. Inside were medical records, police reports, witness statements, photographs, everything I needed to prove that Fletcher wasn't the squeaky clean father he pretended to be. Everything that could ruin him. See, during our marriage, Fletcher had a problem, a drinking problem. And when he drank, he got mean. Never hit me, but he'd destroy things, throw furniture, punch walls, scream until the neighbors called the cops. It happened 4 times in 2 years. 4 documented incidents where the police showed up at our house. I'd filed reports every single time, took pictures of the damage, kept copies of everything. When we divorced, his lawyer made sure those incidents stayed buried. Part of the settlement was that I wouldn't bring up his past behavior in custody hearings. In exchange, I got a better financial deal, and he agreed to supervised visits at first. After a year of him staying sober, the judge lifted the supervision requirement. I thought he'd changed. I thought he'd gotten help, but I'd kept the file, insurance, I told myself, just in case he ever gave me a reason to use it. Well, he just gave me that reason. I grabbed the folder, shoved it into my bag, and walked out of the hospital. The late afternoon sun hit my face as I crossed the parking lot. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear an ambulance siren. Life going on as normal for everyone else, but my world had just tilted sideways. I tried calling Juniper first. It went straight to voicemail. Tried again. Same thing. Then I called Fletcher. He answered on the third ring, his voice casual, like nothing was wrong. "Sloan, hey, what's up? Where's Juniper?" My voice came out flat, cold. She's in her room." "Why?" "She texted me. Said Corinne hit her. Said you watched it happen and did nothing." Silence on the other end. Then a sigh. "Sloan, you're overreacting. Corinne barely touched her. Juniper's being dramatic. Put her on the phone. Now. She doesn't want to talk right now. She's upset because we asked her to help with chores and she threw a tantrum. This is exactly why she needs discipline, Sloan. You let her get away with everything at your place." Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, quietly, like a bone breaking under pressure. "I'm coming over. Right now. Don't you dare leave that house. You can't just show up here whenever you want. This is my custody time. Watch me." I hung up. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my car. I sat in the driver's seat for maybe 10 seconds, just breathing, trying to get control of myself. Then I started the engine and drove. Fletcher lived in a nice neighborhood now. Tree-lined streets, big houses with 2-car garages, the kind of place where people watered their lawns at 6 in the morning and everyone knew everyone else's business. Corinne's money, obviously. Fletcher never made enough on his own to afford a place like this. He worked in sales, some tech company, made decent money, but nothing spectacular. Corinne's family had money though. Old money. The kind that bought houses in cash. The drive took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of my mind racing through every possible scenario. What I'd say when I got there. What I'd do if Corinne tried to defend herself. What I'd do if Fletcher tried to stop me. The file folder sat in my passenger seat, like a loaded weapon. When I pulled up to the house, I didn't park on the street like usual. I drove straight into the driveway, right up to the garage door. Blocked them in. They weren't leaving. Not until I got what I came for. I grabbed the folder and walked up to the front door. My scrubs were wrinkled from the shift. My hair was falling out of its ponytail, and I probably smelled like antiseptic and blood. I didn't care. I rang the doorbell once. Then I knocked. Hard. The door opened, and there she was. Corinne. Blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing white linen pants and a silk blouse like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. Her eyes went to my face first, then dropped to the folder in my hands. The thick, official-looking folder with Fletcher's name written across the front tab. Her expression changed. The polite confusion shifted into something else. Recognition. Fear. "Sloan," she said carefully, "this really isn't a good time. Where's my daughter?" "She's upstairs." But Fletcher said. I stepped forward, and she moved back instinctively. I walked right into the house without invitation, without permission. Behind me, I heard her say something else, but I wasn't listening. I was already halfway across the living room, heading for the stairs. Fletcher appeared at the top of the stairs before I could start climbing. He came down fast, his hand gripping the railing, his face set in that expression I knew so well. The one that said he was about to try to control the situation, manage me like I was one of his difficult clients at work. "Sloan, you need to leave. Now. This is my home, and you're trespassing." I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked up at him. "Where is Juniper?" "In her room, and she's staying there until you calm down." "Until I calm down?" My voice rose before I could stop it. "Your wife put her hands on our daughter, and you're worried about me being calm?" Corinne moved behind me, keeping her distance but close enough to hear everything. "I barely touched her, Sloan. She's being overdramatic. Kids do that when they don't get their way." I turned to face her. She was taller than me by a couple inches, especially in those heels she always wore around the house. But something about my expression made her take a step back. "You hit my daughter." I tapped her shoulder. That's it. She was refusing to help clean up after dinner, and I needed to get her attention. Her face, Corinne. You tapped her face, didn't you? The silence that followed told me everything. Fletcher cleared his throat from behind me. "It was barely anything. You're blowing this completely out of proportion." I held up the folder. "You see this?" Both of them stared at it. Fletcher's face went pale. He knew exactly what it was. This is every police report from our marriage, every incident. Every time the cops showed up because you couldn't control your temper. Every witness statement from neighbors who heard you screaming and breaking things. Every photo I took of the holes you punched in walls, the furniture you destroyed, the doors you kicked in. That's in the past, Fletcher said quickly. That was part of the settlement. You agreed not to. I agreed not to bring it up unless you gave me a reason. Congratulations, Fletcher. You just gave me a reason. Corinne looked between us, confused. What is she talking about? Nothing, Fletcher said. She's making things up. Am I? I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. A police report dated 4 years ago. I started reading out loud. Officers responded to a domestic disturbance at 2847 Maple Drive at approximately 11:15 p.m. Upon arrival, they found the front door partially broken, multiple items of furniture overturned, and the male resident, Fletcher Calloway, highly intoxicated and verbally aggressive. Corinne's eyes widened. Fletcher? I pulled out another sheet. Here's the second one. Officers returned to the same address 3 months later for another disturbance call. This time they found Mr. Calloway had destroyed a bedroom door and was threatening to— Stop it! Fletcher came down the stairs fast. That's enough. You made your point. Have I? I didn't move. Because from where I'm standing, you haven't learned a damn thing. You're still letting people hurt the ones you're supposed to protect. Only difference now is it's not you doing the hurting, it's her. I pointed at Corinne without looking at her. And you're standing there watching just like you always did, just like you're doing right now. This is insane, Corinne said. Fletcher, tell her to leave or I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said. Call them. I'd love to explain to the officers why I'm here, love to show them these reports, love to have them go upstairs and see if there are any marks on my 10-year-old daughter's face. Nobody moved. The only sound was the air conditioning humming somewhere in the house. Outside, I could hear a dog barking 2 houses down. Fletcher ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since I met him. Sloan, please. Let's talk about this rationally. Juniper is fine. She's not hurt. Corinne didn't mean to. Where is she? I cut him off. I want to see her right now. She's upset. She doesn't want to see anyone right now. Then I'll wait. I walked past him to the stairs. He grabbed my arm and I stopped, looked down at his hand on me, then back up at his face. Something in my expression made him let go immediately. I climbed the stairs. Behind me I heard Corinne whisper something to Fletcher, but he shushed her. Good. They should be quiet. They should be thinking very carefully about what happens next. Juniper's room was the second door on the left. I remembered it from the few times I'd picked her up here. It used to be a guest room before Corinne redecorated it. Now it had pale purple walls and white furniture and looked like something out of a catalog. Pretty, but impersonal. Nothing like the room Juniper had at my apartment, with her drawings taped to the walls and her stuffed animals piled on the bed and her books scattered everywhere. I knocked softly. Junebug, it's Mom. No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. Baby, please open the door. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. I heard movement inside, footsteps. Then the lock clicked and the door opened just a crack. Juniper's face appeared in the gap. Her left cheek was red, not bruised, but red enough to show where someone's hand had made contact. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Something broke inside me when I saw that mark, not snapped like before, shattered into 1,000 pieces. Can I come in? She nodded and opened the door wider. I stepped inside and she immediately wrapped her arms around my waist, buried her face in my scrubs, and started crying again. Not loud crying, quiet, exhausted crying. The kind that comes after you've already cried yourself out once and thought you were done, but then it starts again. I held her and stroked her hair and didn't say anything. Sometimes there's nothing to say. Sometimes you just have to be there. After a minute, she pulled back and wiped her face. I didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I promise. She asked me to do all the dishes from dinner, and I said okay, but then she kept adding more. Like dishes that weren't even from dinner, dishes from lunch, dishes from this morning. And then she wanted me to scrub the whole sink and reorganize all the cups in the cabinet. How long were you doing dishes? Almost 2 hours. I missed my homework time. And when I said I needed to stop and do my homework, she got mad, said I was being lazy and disrespectful. Dad was right there in the living room. I looked at him and he just looked away. My jaw clenched. What happened next? I said I wasn't going to do any more dishes. I said it wasn't fair. And Juniper touched her cheek. She slapped me. Not super hard, but it hurt. And it scared me. And Dad still didn't do anything. He just sat there. I pulled her close again. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. It's not your fault. You were at work. That doesn't matter. You should never, ever have to go through something like that. Not here, not anywhere. Are you going to take me home? I pulled back and looked at her face. Do you want to go home? Yes, please. I don't want to stay here anymore. Okay, pack a bag. Pack enough for the whole week. Maybe longer. Her eyes got wide. Am I not coming back here? Not if I can help it. What about the custody schedule? Don't worry about that right now. Just pack your things. Have any of you ever had to choose between following the rules and protecting your child? What would you have done? She moved to her closet and started pulling clothes off hangers. I sat on the edge of her bed and watched her, my mind already 3 steps ahead. I knew what I was about to do would cause problems. Legal problems. Fletcher could accuse me of violating the custody agreement. He could take me back to court. But right now, in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was getting Juniper out of this house and somewhere safe. I pulled out my phone and texted my sister Della. She lived 20 minutes away and had always told me to call if I needed anything. Need you to come to Fletcher's house. Now, bring your phone and be ready to take photos. She texted back immediately. On my way. Juniper finished packing her bag. Clothes, shoes, her favorite stuffed elephant, her school books, her tablet. She zipped it up and looked at me. What about Dad? What about him? Is he going to be mad? Probably. But that's not your problem. That's between him and me. We walked out of her room together. Fletcher was standing at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed, blocking the way down. Corinne stood behind him, her earlier fear replaced with anger. You're not taking her, Fletcher said. Yes, I am. This is my custody time. You can't just... Watch me. I started down the stairs with Juniper behind me. Move, Fletcher. I'll call my lawyer. I'll have you arrested for kidnapping. You do that. And while you're on the phone with your lawyer, I'll be on the phone with Child Protective Services. Let's see who they believe when they see the mark on our daughter's face and read through these police reports. He didn't move. We were 3 steps apart, close enough that I could see the vein pulsing in his temple, the one that always showed up when he was trying not to lose his temper. Corinne spoke up. This is ridiculous. You're being completely irrational. I looked at her. Stay out of this. This is between me and him. This is my house. And that's my daughter, the daughter you hit. I told you. I don't care if you barely did anything or if you full-on punched her. You put your hands on her in anger. That's done. You don't get a second chance. Fletcher stepped aside finally, not because he wanted to, because he saw the same thing Corinne saw when she first opened the door, that I wasn't here to negotiate. I wasn't here to discuss. I was here to take my daughter, and there was nothing he could do to stop me. Juniper and I walked past Fletcher and Corinne, through the living room with its perfectly arranged furniture and designer throw pillows, past the kitchen where I could see the stack of dishes still sitting in the sink, out the front door into the evening air. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Somewhere down the street, a sprinkler was running. My car was still blocking the driveway. I opened the back door and Juniper climbed in, clutching her bag. I was about to get in the driver's seat when Della's car pulled up to the curb. She got out fast, her short dark hair still damp like she'd just gotten out of the shower, wearing jeans and an old college sweatshirt. What happened? She asked as she reached me. I gestured toward the house. Fletcher and Corinne were standing in the doorway, watching. Corinne hit Juniper. Fletcher let it happen. I need you to photograph the mark on her face before it fades. Della didn't ask questions. She pulled out her phone and walked to my car, opened the back door, and leaned in. I heard her talking softly to Juniper, asking if it was okay to take some pictures. Juniper said yes. The flash went off 4 times. Then Della straightened up and showed me the screen. Clear images of Juniper's red cheek from multiple angles, with timestamps and everything. Send those to me right now, I said. And send them to yourself too. Email, text, cloud storage, everything. Multiple copies. Already doing it. Her fingers moved across the screen. My phone buzzed with the incoming messages. Fletcher started walking toward us. Della saw him coming and stepped between him and my car. That's close enough, Fletcher. This is insane. Della, you're her sister. Talk some sense into her. I saw the pictures, that's all the sense I need. It's a little redness. Kids get that from playing too rough, from rubbing their faces, from anything. You're both acting like a child was hit? I interrupted. Yeah, Fletcher, that's exactly what we're acting like. Because that's exactly what happened. Corinne came down the driveway now, too. You're going to regret this, Sloan. You're violating a court order. Fletcher's lawyer will tear you apart. Let him try. I got in my car and started the engine. Della stepped back toward her own vehicle. Through my rearview mirror, I could see Fletcher's face turning red. He was saying something, probably more threats about lawyers and courts and consequences. I couldn't hear him over the engine and I didn't care. I backed out of the driveway, Della following behind me in her car. As I drove away, I glanced at Juniper in the rearview mirror. She was looking out the window, her stuffed elephant clutched in her lap, her expression blank. That scared me more than the crying had. Kids shouldn't look that empty. You okay back there, Junebug? Yeah. Her voice was small. We're going home, your real home. And then we're going to order whatever you want for dinner. Pizza? Chinese? That Thai place you love? I'm not really hungry. That's okay. We'll order something anyway, and you can eat it later if you want. She nodded but didn't say anything else. I drove in silence, my hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary, my mind already spinning through everything I needed to do next. Call my own lawyer first thing in the morning. Document everything. File an emergency custody modification. Report this to the authorities. The list kept growing. My apartment was on the other side of town, a small 2-bedroom place in an older building that had seen better days. The carpet was worn, the appliances were outdated, and the bathroom tiles were cracked. But it was ours. Juniper's room was exactly how she'd left it that morning when Fletcher picked her up. Bed unmade, art supplies spread across her desk, shoes kicked off by the door. Della came inside with us. She sat with Juniper on the couch while I made tea in the kitchen, just to have something to do with my hands. The kettle whistled and I poured 3 cups, even though Juniper probably wouldn't drink hers. Chamomile. Something calming. Juniper, Della said gently, can you tell me exactly what happened? Starting from the beginning? I carried the cups into the living room and set them on the coffee table. Sat down on Juniper's other side. She picked at a loose thread on her stuffed elephant's ear. We had spaghetti for dinner. Me, Dad, and Corinne. After we ate, Dad went to watch TV, and Corinne told me to do the dishes. I said okay, but there were so many, and she kept bringing more. Like dishes from earlier in the day that she'd left around the house. Coffee mugs from the morning, lunch plates from the dining room, snack bowls from the den. I washed everything she brought me. How long did this take? Della asked. I don't know. A long time. I kept thinking I was done, and then she'd bring more. And then she wanted me to scrub the sink with this special cleaner and organize all the glasses in the cabinet by size. I was so tired. My hands hurt from the hot water and the scrubbing. And I had homework I was supposed to do. What kind of homework? Math. We have a test Friday and I need to study. I told her I needed to stop and do my homework and she got really mad. She said I was being lazy. She said when she was my age, she did way more chores than this and never complained. She said Dad was too easy on me and I needed to learn responsibility. Juniper's voice was getting quieter with each sentence. Della put her hand on Juniper's knee. And that's when she hit you? I told her I wasn't doing any more dishes. I said it wasn't fair. I said I'd been washing dishes for 2 hours and I needed to do my homework. And her face got really scary. And she said I was talking back to her, and she hit me right here. Juniper touched her cheek. It wasn't like a punch or anything, but it was hard enough that it made a sound. And it stung, and I started crying. Where was your dad during all this? In the living room, watching some show. I could see him from the kitchen. I looked right at him when she hit me. I wanted him to do something, but he just looked away, like he didn't see it. But he did. I know he did. My chest felt tight. I wanted to say something comforting, something that would make this better, but there was nothing. What happened, happened. I couldn't undo it. Did Corinne say anything after she hit you? Della asked. She told me to go to my room, so I did. I went upstairs and locked the door, and that's when I texted Mom. You did exactly the right thing, I said. Texting me was exactly what you should have done. I thought maybe I was being dramatic. That's what Corinne said when I was crying, that I was being overdramatic, and this is why nobody liked me. Anger flared hot in my chest. Nobody said that about you. That's a lie. You are not overdramatic. You are not unlikable. What happened to you was wrong, and you had every right to be upset. Juniper leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. We sat like that for a while. Della drank her tea and scrolled through her phone, probably already researching lawyers and custody law. That's how she was. Practical, solution-oriented. When our mom died 6 years ago, Della handled everything. The funeral arrangements, the estate paperwork, the phone calls to relatives. I fell apart, and she held things together. She was doing it again now. My phone rang. Fletcher's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Voicemail again. Then a text message. "We need to talk. Call me back." I didn't respond. Another text. "You can't keep her from me. I have rights." Then another. "My lawyer says this is parental kidnapping. You're violating the custody order." And another. "Sloan, answer your phone." I turned my phone face down on the coffee table. Della noticed. "He's already threatening legal action?" "Looks like it." "Good. Let him. We have photos. We have witness testimony from Juniper. We have your statement as a medical professional who saw the mark. And we have that folder of police reports. If he wants to take this to court, we'll bury him." I wanted to believe her. But I'd been through family court before. I knew how slow it moved, how expensive it was, how the system bent over backward to preserve fathers' rights, even when those fathers didn't deserve them. Fletcher had a good lawyer, paid for by Corinne's family money. I had a public defender I'd met once during the divorce who'd rushed through our meetings like he had somewhere better to be. "I need to call a lawyer," I said. "Tomorrow morning. First thing. I already texted you a name. Guy I know from work, specializes in family law. He's good. Expensive, but good." "I can't afford expensive." "Then I'll help you. This is Juniper we're talking about. We'll figure out the money part." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Fletcher. "Fine. Have it your way. See you in court." Juniper felt me tense up. She lifted her head from my shoulder. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Your dad's just being your dad." "Is he mad?" "Probably, but that's not your problem. You didn't do anything wrong." She didn't look convinced. Kids always think their parents' fights are somehow their fault. I needed to make sure she understood this wasn't on her. "Juniper, look at me." I waited until she made eye contact. "What happened tonight is not because of anything you did. You are not responsible for Corinne's actions. You are not responsible for your dad's inaction. This is completely 100% on them. Do you understand?" "I guess. I need you to really understand it. Not just say you understand. I need you to believe it." She nodded slowly. "Okay." Della stood up. "I should probably head out. You two need some time. But call me if anything happens, doesn't matter what time. I'll keep my phone on loud." "Thank you," I said. "Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd do exactly what you're doing now, because you're a good mom, and that's what good moms do." She hugged me, then hugged Juniper. "Stay strong, kiddo. Your mom's got this." After Della left, I ordered Thai food, even though neither of us was hungry. Pad Thai for me, chicken sauté for Juniper, spring rolls we could pick at. It arrived 30 minutes later, and we ate at the coffee table with the TV on in the background. Some animated movie Juniper had seen a dozen times. Comfort viewing. She ate 2 bites of chicken and 3 spring roll pieces. Better than nothing. I ate mechanically, not tasting anything, my mind elsewhere. Running through scenarios, worst-case outcomes, best-case outcomes, everything in between. Around 9 o'clock, Juniper's eyes started drooping. I sent her to brush her teeth and change into pajamas. When she came back out, she looked so small in her oversized sleep shirt with cartoon cats on it. "Can I sleep in your bed tonight?" she asked. Of course. We lay down together, her curled up on her side facing me on my back staring at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet, except for the occasional car passing outside and the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. "Mom? Yeah, baby? Are you going to get in trouble for taking me?" "Maybe. Probably. I don't know yet. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me." I rolled onto my side to face her. "Listen to me. Whatever happens next, whatever consequences come from tonight, I want you to remember something. I would do this again, 100 times, 1,000 times. You are my daughter, and protecting you is the most important thing in my life. More important than custody agreements or lawyers or what any judge says. Do you understand?" She nodded, her eyes already closing. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, and she was asleep. I stayed awake for a long time after that, watching her, making sure she was really okay, making sure this was all real and not some nightmare I'd wake up from. I barely slept that night. Every time I started to drift off, my mind would jerk me back awake with some new worry. What if Fletcher showed up at my door with the police? What if a judge ordered me to return Juniper immediately? What if I'd just made everything worse? By 6 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely. I slipped out of bed carefully so I wouldn't wake Juniper and made coffee in the kitchen. Strong, black, the kind that burns going down. I sat at my small dining table with my laptop and started documenting everything. Every detail from yesterday, every word Juniper had said, every text message Fletcher had sent. I took screenshots of everything on my phone and backed them up to 3 different cloud accounts. Then I pulled up the file folder I'd grabbed from the hospital, spread all the police reports across the table, 4 incidents over 2 years. I read through them again, looking for anything I might have missed before. Any detail that could help my case. The first report was from a night I still remembered vividly. Fletcher had come home drunk after a client dinner, mad because one of his deals had fallen through. I'd said something about him needing to cut back on drinking, and he'd exploded. Threw the coffee table over, smashed 2 lamps, punched a hole in the bedroom door. The neighbors called 911 when they heard me screaming for him to stop. By the time the officers arrived, Fletcher had passed out on the couch. They'd taken photos of everything, filed a report, offered to arrest him. I'd said no. I'd thought he just needed help. I'd thought he'd change. The second incident was worse. He'd been drinking again, this time at home. Started an argument about money, about how I spent too much, about how I never appreciated what he did for us. The argument escalated. He'd grabbed my phone and thrown it against the wall, shattering it. Then he'd gone through the house destroying things. Picture frames, dishes, a mirror in the bathroom. Cut his hand on the broken glass and bled all over the carpet. I'd locked myself in Juniper's room with her, called 911 from her tablet. She'd been 5 years old enough to remember, old enough to be scared. The third and fourth reports were similar. Drinking, anger, destruction. No physical violence against me, but the threat was always there. The sense that things could escalate at any moment. That's when I'd started keeping the reports. Started documenting everything. Started planning my exit strategy. When we divorced, Fletcher's lawyer had painted me as vindictive. Said I was exaggerating the incidents. Said the police reports didn't show any actual violence. Said Fletcher had been dealing with work stress and had made some mistakes but had never hurt anyone. The judge had agreed mostly. Hence the supervised visits at first, then unsupervised once Fletcher completed an anger management course and stayed sober for a year. But here's the thing about anger issues. They don't just disappear because you take a class. They evolve. They adapt. Fletcher might not be destroying property anymore, but he'd found other ways to be destructive. Like marrying someone who would do his dirty work for him. Like letting his new wife discipline his daughter however she wanted. Like looking away when that discipline crossed a line. I pulled out my phone and called the number Della had texted me last night, the lawyer. It was barely 7 in the morning, but the voicemail greeting said to leave a message any time for urgent matters. I considered this pretty damn urgent. Hi, my name is Sloan Merritt. My sister Della gave me your number. I have an emergency custody situation and I need help immediately. My ex-husband's wife hit our 10-year-old daughter yesterday, and I removed her from his home. He's threatening legal action, and I need to file an emergency motion for custody modification. Please call me back as soon as possible. I left my number and hung up. Checked my phone for any new messages from Fletcher. Nothing since last night's threat about court. That worried me more than the angry texts had. Silence from Fletcher usually meant he was planning something. Juniper wandered out of the bedroom around 7:30, still in her pajamas, her hair a mess. She looked around the apartment like she was making sure she was really here, and last night hadn't been a dream. Morning, Junebug. You hungry? She shrugged. I made her toast with peanut butter and sliced banana, her favorite breakfast. She ate about half of it while I sat across from her, sipping my 3rd cup of coffee. Do I have to go to school today? She asked. Good question. I hadn't thought that far ahead. Do you want to? I don't know. What if Dad tries to pick me up? He won't. I'll call the school and make sure they know he's not allowed to take you right now. What about Corinne? Definitely not Corinne. She picked at her toast, pulling it into small pieces. Everyone's going to know something's wrong. I look like I've been crying. She was right. Her eyes were still puffy, her cheek still slightly red. You can stay home today. I'll call in sick to the hospital. We'll have a quiet day together. Relief flooded her face. Really? Really? We can watch movies, order lunch, do whatever you want. Sound good? Yeah, that sounds really good. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it cautiously. Hello? Ms. Merritt? This is Thatcher Hayes. You left me a message about a custody emergency? The lawyer. I felt my shoulders relax slightly. Yes, thank you for calling back so quickly. Your sister mentioned you might be calling. She gave me a brief overview of the situation. I have an opening at 10 this morning, if you can come to my office. Bring all documentation you have. Police reports, text messages, photos of your daughter, everything. I'll be there. Thank you. He gave me the address and we hung up. 2.5 hours until the meeting. Enough time to shower, get dressed, make copies of everything. I looked at Juniper. Baby, I need to go meet with a lawyer this morning. Can Aunt Della come stay with you for a couple hours? Can't I come with you? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to keep her close, where I could see her. But part of me knew she didn't need to sit through a meeting where we discussed all the ugly details of what happened. I think it's better if you stay here. The meeting might be boring. Lots of adult legal talk. Okay. She didn't argue, just took another bite of toast. I texted Della. She responded immediately that she'd be here in 20 minutes. Of course she would. Della always showed up. I took a quick shower, put on the most professional outfit I owned, a navy dress I usually saved for parent-teacher conferences and hospital staff meetings, blow-dried my hair, put on minimal makeup. I needed to look put together, responsible, like a mother who had her life in order. Not like someone who'd stormed into her ex's house in bloody scrubs and essentially kidnapped her own daughter. Della arrived exactly when she said she would, carrying a bag of bagels and a container of cream cheese. Breakfast reinforcements, she announced. Figured you probably haven't eaten. She was right. I hadn't. I grabbed a bagel and ate it standing in the kitchen while Della sat with Juniper in the living room, already pulling up a new animated movie on the streaming service. You look nervous, Della said, glancing at me. I am nervous. Don't be. You did the right thing. Any judge will see that. You have a lot more faith in the family court system than I do. Fair point. But you have evidence. You have witnesses. You have a history of his anger issues. This isn't just your word against his. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I'd spent enough time in courtrooms during the divorce to know that evidence didn't always matter as much as it should. That sometimes judges cared more about maintaining two-parent access than protecting kids. That fathers often got the benefit of the doubt in ways mothers never did. I should go, I said, checking my phone. Don't want to be late. We'll be fine here. Go do what you need to do. I kissed Juniper's head on my way out. She barely looked up from the TV, already absorbed in whatever colorful adventure was playing out on screen. Normal kid behavior. Good. She needed normal right now. The drive to the lawyer's office took 20 minutes. He worked out of a small building near downtown, one of those converted old houses that had been turned into professional offices. Thatcher Hayes had the entire second floor. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, checked me in and told me he'd be right with me. I sat in the waiting room, my folder of police reports on my lap, my phone in my hand in case Fletcher tried to call. The office was quiet, except for the soft classical music playing from hidden speakers and the occasional sound of footsteps upstairs. Exactly at 10, a door opened and a man appeared. Tall, maybe late 40s, graying at the temples, wearing a suit that looked expensive but comfortable. Ms. Merritt? I'm Thatcher Hayes. Come on back. His office was cluttered in that organized chaos way. Stacks of files, law books, framed degrees on the walls. He gestured to a chair across from his desk, and I sat, placing my folder between us. Tell me everything, he said, pulling out a legal pad. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told him about the divorce, the custody agreement, Fletcher's history of anger issues, the police reports. I told him about Corinne, about Juniper's messages over the past year hinting that things weren't good. I told him about yesterday. The text message, the drive to Fletcher's house, finding Juniper with a red mark on her face, taking her home despite the custody schedule. Thatcher took notes the entire time, occasionally asking questions. What time did the incident occur? What exactly did Juniper say Corinne said? Were there any other witnesses besides Fletcher? Did I take photos? Did anyone else see the mark? I showed him the photos Della had taken, showed him the police reports, Showed him the text messages from Fletcher threatening legal action. He examined everything carefully, his expression neutral, professional. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me. Okay, here's where we are. Legally, you did violate the custody order by taking Juniper outside your scheduled time. Fletcher could file a motion for contempt and potentially win. However, you had reasonable cause to believe your daughter was in danger. That's a valid defense. So what do? We file an emergency motion for temporary custody modification. We include all of this evidence, the photos, Juniper's statement, the history of Fletcher's anger issues, everything. We ask the court to give you full temporary custody until a hearing can be scheduled. How long does that take? Emergency motions usually get heard within a week or two, sometimes faster if we can demonstrate immediate danger, and I think we can. The fact that Fletcher witnessed the incident and did nothing is significant. Courts take that seriously. Relief started seeping through my anxiety. What are the chances we win? I'd say good. Not guaranteed. Family court is unpredictable, but good. You've documented everything. You acted reasonably. You have photographic evidence. And you have a pattern of behavior from Fletcher that suggests he prioritizes his new wife over his daughter's well-being. Thatcher spent the next hour drafting the emergency motion, while I sat in his office answering questions and providing details. What was Juniper's school schedule? Had there been any previous incidents with Corinne? Did Fletcher have any history of missing visitation or failing to provide adequate care? Every question felt important, like each answer could tip the scales one way or another. One more thing, Thatcher said, looking up from his laptop. We need to be prepared for Fletcher's counter-arguments. His lawyer will likely claim you're being vindictive, that you've alienated Juniper from her father, that you're using this incident to manipulate the custody situation. How do you respond to that? With the truth. I've never kept Juniper from Fletcher. I've followed every custody order to the letter. I've encouraged their relationship even when it was hard for me. This isn't about revenge or control. This is about keeping my daughter safe. Good. That's exactly what you'll say if we end up in court. He typed a few more sentences, then turned his monitor toward me. Read through this. Make sure everything is accurate. I read the motion carefully. It laid out the facts in cold, legal language. The incident on such and such date. The physical contact between Corinne Hayes and the minor child. The father's failure to intervene or protect. The documented history of anger management issues. The petitioner's reasonable belief that the child was in imminent danger. It all sounded so clinical, so removed from the actual emotion of what happened. But I supposed that's how the law worked. Emotions didn't matter, only facts. It's accurate, I said. I'll file this electronically within the hour. The court will assign us a hearing date. In the meantime, do not let Juniper go back to Fletcher's house. If he shows up at your place demanding to see her, call the police. If he shows up at her school, notify them immediately and call me. What if he gets a court order forcing me to return her? We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. But given the evidence, I don't think that'll happen. More likely, the court will maintain the status quo until the hearing. I stood up, feeling slightly more solid than when I'd arrived. Still scared, still uncertain, but at least I had a plan now. I had someone on my side who knew what they were doing. One last thing, Thatcher said as I reached the door. Fletcher's going to fight dirty. Men like him always do when they feel their control slipping. Document every interaction, save every text, every email, every voicemail. If he threatens you, record it. If he shows up unannounced, take photos. We need an airtight case. I will. Thank you. The drive back to my apartment felt longer than the drive there. My mind kept spinning through possibilities. What if this backfired? What if the judge thought I was overreacting? What if they decided Fletcher deserved another chance and sent Juniper back to that house? When I got home, Della and Juniper were in the kitchen making grilled cheese sandwiches. Juniper's face lit up when she saw me. How'd it go? Good. Really good. The lawyer's filing an emergency motion today. What does that mean? Juniper asked. It means we're asking a judge to let you stay with me until we can have a proper hearing about what happened. And then what? Then we tell the judge everything, and he decides what's best for you. What if he decides I have to go back to Dad's? I knelt down so I was at her eye level. Then we'll appeal. We'll fight it. We won't stop fighting until you're safe. I promise you that. She hugged me tight. Della caught my eye over Juniper's head and gave me a small nod. "We've got this," her expression said. I hoped she was right. The rest of the day passed quietly. We ate lunch, watched movies, avoided looking at our phones too much. Around 3, mine rang. Fletcher's lawyer this time, not Fletcher himself. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. "Ms. Merritt, this is Sterling Quincy, attorney for Fletcher Calloway. I've been informed that you've removed the minor child from my client's custody in violation of the existing court order. We're prepared to file a motion for contempt and seek immediate return of the child. However, my client is willing to discuss this matter reasonably if you're open to conversation. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Thatcher. He texted back within minutes. "Don't call him back. Don't engage. Let me handle all communication with Fletcher's attorney." Good. I didn't want to talk to Sterling Quincy. Didn't want to hear whatever reasonable-sounding arguments he'd prepared to explain why I should send my daughter back to a house where she'd been hit. Della stayed for dinner. We ordered pizza and ate it straight from the box at the coffee table while some cooking competition show played on TV. Normal stuff, comfortable stuff. The kind of evening that made you forget, just for a moment, that everything else was falling apart. Around 8, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Thatcher Hayes. Motion filed. Hearing scheduled for Monday morning, 9 a.m. Judge Morrison presiding. I'll meet you outside courtroom 3B at 8:30. Monday. 3 days away. 72 hours to keep Juniper safe and prepare for whatever Fletcher and his expensive lawyer were planning. I showed the email to Della. She read it and nodded. Morrison's fair. Tough, but fair. I've heard good things about him. How do you know anything about family court judges? I dated a paralegal for 6 months last year. She talked about work constantly. Della shrugged. You pick things up. Juniper had fallen asleep on the couch, her head on a throw pillow, her elephant tucked under her arm. She looked peaceful, young, innocent, like she hadn't spent the last 24 hours living through trauma that would probably stick with her for years. You should get some rest too, Della said quietly. You look exhausted. I don't think I can sleep. Try anyway. You need to be sharp for Monday. She was right, of course. I carried Juniper to bed, tucked her in, then lay down myself, stared at the ceiling in the dark, listened to Juniper's soft breathing beside me, wondered what Fletcher was doing right now. Was he angry? Planning his courtroom strategy? Drinking? Had Corinne talked him into fighting harder? Or was she having regrets about what she'd done? My phone lit up with a text. Unknown number. This is Corinne. We need to talk. I stared at the message. How did she get my number? Fletcher must have given it to her. I didn't respond. Whatever she wanted to say, I didn't want to hear it. Another text. I'm sorry about what happened. I never meant to hurt Juniper. Can we please talk about this like adults? Then another. You're making this so much bigger than it needs to be. It was barely a tap. She's fine. And another. Fletcher's talking about taking you back to court for parental alienation. I told him that's too much. I'm trying to help you here. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand, closed my eyes, tried to find some quiet place in my mind where I could rest for a few hours. Tomorrow would come whether I slept or not. Friday would come, then Saturday, Sunday, then Monday morning, standing outside courtroom 3B, about to fight the most important battle of my life. Friday morning I woke up to Juniper shaking my shoulder. Mom, wake up, someone's knocking on the door. I sat up fast, my heart already racing, checked my phone. 7:15. The knocking came again, louder this time, insistent. Stay here, I told Juniper. I got up, grabbed a robe and walked to the front door, looked through the peephole. A woman in a dark suit stood outside, holding a folder and a badge. I opened the door, but left the chain on. Can I help you? Sloan Merritt? Yes. I'm Paloma Sutton, Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you about a report filed yesterday regarding your daughter. My stomach dropped. Fletcher. He'd called CPS. Of course he had. I should have seen this coming. Just a moment. I closed the door, took the chain off, opened it again. Come in. Paloma Sutton stepped inside, her eyes immediately scanning the apartment, taking in the second-hand furniture, the breakfast dishes still on the coffee table, the pile of Juniper's laundry I hadn't gotten around to folding. She was evaluating, judging, deciding if this was an adequate home for a child. Is Juniper here? She asked. In the bedroom. I'll need to speak with her privately, and I'll need to see where she sleeps. This was it. The moment where everything could go wrong. If Juniper said the wrong thing, if this woman decided I was unstable or overreacting, if she believed Fletcher's version of events over mine. Of course, I said, keeping my voice steady. Whatever you need. Paloma walked toward the bedroom. I wanted to follow, to make sure Juniper didn't get scared, didn't say something that could be twisted, but I knew I couldn't. Interference would only make me look worse. I stood in the hallway outside the bedroom, listening to the murmur of voices. Paloma asking questions, Juniper answering in that small voice she got when she was nervous. I couldn't make out most of the words, just the cadence. Question, answer, question, answer. 20 minutes later, Paloma emerged. Her expression gave nothing away. Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Merritt. I'll be filing my report with the court. You should receive a copy within 48 hours. What happens now? That's up to the judge at your hearing Monday. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, your daughter's account of events is consistent with the photos and documentation you've provided to your attorney. That matters. And then she was gone, just like that, leaving me standing in my living room, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. Juniper came out of the bedroom. Did I say something wrong? No, baby. You did perfect. I pulled her into a hug. You told the truth. That's all you ever need to do. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. Saturday morning, Thatcher emailed me a list of potential questions I might face in court. How long had the custody arrangement been in place? Had there been any previous conflicts? Why didn't I call the police immediately when I saw the mark on Juniper's face? That last one worried me. I should have called the police. I knew that now. But in the moment, all I'd cared about was getting Juniper out of that house. Sunday evening, Della came over with takeout and helped me pick out what to wear to court. We settled on a simple gray suit I'd bought for job interviews years ago. A white blouse, low heels, conservative, professional. The outfit of a responsible mother, not someone who'd barged into her ex's house in bloody scrubs and essentially kidnapped her own kid. Juniper went to bed early Sunday night, exhausted from 3 days of stress and disrupted routine. I stayed up past midnight reviewing my notes, rehearsing answers to questions I hoped wouldn't be asked. What if the judge asked why I hadn't documented Corinne's behavior earlier? What if Fletcher's lawyer brought up the settlement agreement where I'd promised not to use the police reports? What if they painted me as vindictive, unstable, someone using her daughter as a weapon? By Monday morning, I was running on 3 hours of sleep and too much coffee. I dropped Juniper at Della's apartment, hugged her tight, promised I'd call as soon as the hearing was over. She looked scared. So was I, but I couldn't let her see that. The courthouse was downtown, a massive concrete building that always felt oppressive. Security lines, metal detectors, hallways that echoed. I found courtroom 3B on the second floor. Thatcher was already there, sitting on a bench outside, reviewing documents on his tablet. "Ready?" he asked when he saw me. "Not even a little bit." Good answer. Anyone who says they're ready for family court is lying. He stood up, straightened his tie. "Remember what we talked about. Answer questions directly. Don't elaborate unless asked. Don't let Fletcher's lawyer bait you into getting emotional. You're calm, rational, concerned for your daughter's safety. That's it." We walked into the courtroom. Smaller than I expected. Wooden benches, fluorescent lights, the state seal on the wall behind the judge's bench. Fletcher was already there with Sterling Quincy, his lawyer. Fletcher looked tired, his tie slightly crooked. Our eyes met for half a second before he looked away. Corinne wasn't there, probably smart. Her presence would only make things worse. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Morrison entered from a side door. Late 50s, gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. He settled into his chair and gestured for everyone to sit. Case number 2024 FM 7831, Merritt v. Callaway, emergency motion for temporary custody modification. Mr. Hayes, this is your motion. Proceed. Thatcher stood. Your Honor, we're here because my client's 10-year-old daughter was physically struck by the respondent's wife while in his custody. The respondent witnessed this assault and took no action to protect the child. My client, acting reasonably to ensure her daughter's safety, removed the child from what she believed to be a dangerous situation. We're asking the court to grant temporary full custody to my client pending a full evidentiary hearing. Judge Morrison looked at the papers in front of him. I've reviewed the motion and supporting documents. I've also reviewed the report from Child Protective Services. Mr. Quincy, what's your response? Sterling Quincy stood, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Your Honor, this is a gross overreaction to a minor disciplinary incident. The child was asked to complete age-appropriate chores and refused. Mrs. Calloway, in an attempt to redirect the child's attention, made brief physical contact with the child's shoulder. The child, who by all accounts is prone to dramatics, interpreted this as assault. Ms. Merritt, rather than communicating with my client like a rational co-parent, chose to violate the custody order and remove the child illegally. We're asking the court to find Ms. Merritt in contempt and restore the existing custody arrangement immediately. The CPS report indicates visible redness on the child's face, Judge Morrison said, looking at Quincy over his glasses. That's inconsistent with contact to the shoulder. The child had been crying, Your Honor. Children's faces get red when they cry. There's no evidence of actual injury. There are photographs of normal childhood redness that could have come from any number of sources. Judge Morrison turned to Thatcher. Do you have the photographs? Yes, Your Honor. Thatcher approached the bench with his tablet, showing the images Della had taken. I couldn't see the judge's face from where I sat, but I watched his eyes as he examined each photo carefully. These were taken approximately 30 minutes after the alleged incident? The judge asked. Approximately, yes. And the child has given a statement? Yes, Your Honor. She described being slapped across the face after refusing to continue doing dishes. Her statement has been consistent across multiple tellings, to her mother, to her aunt, and to the CPS investigator. Judge Morrison looked at Fletcher. Mr. Calloway, stand up, please. Fletcher stood, his jaw tight. Were you present when your wife made contact with your daughter? Yes, Your Honor, but did you see where she made contact? Fletcher hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. I was in the other room. I heard raised voices, but I didn't see exactly what happened. Your daughter says you saw everything, that you were in the living room and she looked directly at you when it happened. Are you saying your daughter is lying? I'm saying she might have misunderstood what she saw. It happened very fast. So you did see it. I saw Corinne reach toward her, yes, but it wasn't violent. It wasn't abuse. Juniper was being disrespectful, and Corinne was trying to get her attention. By striking her in the face? It wasn't a strike. It was a tap. Judge Morrison leaned back in his chair. Mr. Calloway, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I've heard every excuse, every justification, every minimization. What you're describing is assault of a minor. The fact that you witnessed it and took no action to protect your child is deeply concerning. Fletcher's face went red. Your Honor, with all respect, I love my daughter. I would never let anyone hurt her. And yet here we are. The judge turned to Quincy. Does your client have any evidence that Ms. Merritt is an unfit parent? Any documentation of neglect, abuse, or endangerment? No, Your Honor, but any evidence that the child is unsafe in her mother's care? The violation of the custody order itself demonstrates a mother protecting her child. That's not unfitness, Mr. Quincy. That's parenting. Judge Morrison shuffled some papers, made a note. Here's what's going to happen. Temporary full custody is granted to Ms. Merritt effective immediately. Mr. Calloway, you will have supervised visitation every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Family Resource Center. Supervision will continue until a full evidentiary hearing can be scheduled. Your Honor, Quincy stood quickly. That's excessive. There's no evidence my client poses any danger to the child. Your client failed to protect his child from assault in his own home. That's all the evidence I need. The order stands. Judge Morrison looked at Fletcher. Mr. Calloway, I strongly suggest you give serious thought to your priorities here. Your daughter needs to feel safe with you. Right now, she doesn't. That's your problem to fix. He banged his gavel. Full evidentiary hearing will be scheduled within 60 days. Both parties will receive notice. We're adjourned. Just like that, it was over. Fletcher stood there, his face a mixture of shock and rage. Quincy was already whispering something to him, probably damage control, probably planning their next move. But it didn't matter. I'd won. Temporarily, at least. Juniper was safe. Thatcher and I walked out of the courtroom together. In the hallway, I finally let myself breathe. Really breathe. For the first time in 4 days. That went better than I expected, Thatcher said. What happens at the full hearing? We present everything. Witnesses, documentation, Expert testimony if needed. Fletcher will have his chance to defend himself. But Morrison's already leaning our way. That's obvious. And the supervised visits? He'll fight them. But they'll stay in place until the final hearing. Morrison doesn't mess around with child safety. Behind us, the courtroom door opened. Fletcher and Quincy emerged. Fletcher saw me and stopped. For a moment, I thought he might say something. But Quincy put a hand on his arm and steered him toward the elevators. I waited until they were gone before heading to my own car. Called Della from the parking lot. We won. Temporary full custody. He gets supervised visits only. That's amazing. When can I tell Juniper? Now. Tell her now. Tell her she doesn't have to go back there. I heard Juniper's voice in the background asking questions. Della said something, then Juniper grabbed the phone. Mom? Really? I can stay with you? Really, baby? You're safe now. She started crying. Happy crying this time. Relief crying. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't have to thank me. This is what moms do. We protect our kids. I drove back to Della's apartment in a daze, the relief so overwhelming it felt almost physical, like I could finally unclenched muscles I hadn't realized I'd been holding tight for days. The judge had believed us, had seen through Fletcher's excuses and Quincy's legal maneuvering. Juniper was safe. That's all that mattered. When I walked into Della's apartment, Juniper ran straight to me, wrapped her arms around my waist and held on like she'd never let go. I could feel her shoulders shaking with sobs, the kind that come from deep inside, from a place of fear that's finally been released. It's okay, I whispered into her hair. It's over. You're safe now. I don't have to go back. Not unless you want to. And even then, not without supervision. Someone will be there to make sure you're protected. She pulled back and looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. What about Dad? What about him? Is he mad? Probably. But that's his problem, not yours. You didn't do anything wrong. Della handed me a tissue, and I wiped Juniper's face. We sat on the couch together, the three of us, and I explained what happened in court, how the judge had looked at the photos, listened to the statements, asked Fletcher directly if he'd seen what happened, how Fletcher had tried to minimize it, to make it sound like nothing, but the judge hadn't bought it. He said you failed to protect me, Juniper said quietly. It wasn't a question. She'd heard that part when Della told her the news. That's right, and he was telling the truth. Your dad should have stopped Corinne the second she raised her hand to you. He should have stepped in, should have protected you, should have made it clear that behavior wasn't acceptable. Instead, he looked away. That's failure, Juniper. That's choosing comfort over courage. She was quiet for a moment, processing. Does Dad know that? That he failed? I think he does now. Will he try to get me back? There'll be another hearing in a couple months, a bigger one where both sides present evidence, but Thatcher thinks we'll win, and I believe him. Della got up to make tea, leaving Juniper and me alone on the couch. Juniper leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, her breathing finally evening out. She felt lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off her small frame. Mom? Yeah, baby? Thank you for believing me. Not just now. Before, when I told you about Corinne, when I said she was mean to me, and made me do extra chores and said I was lazy. You believed me even when Dad didn't. My throat tightened. Of course I believed you. I'll always believe you. Some of my friends at school, their parents get divorced, and then they have to pretend everything's fine even when it's not. They have to act like they're happy at both houses even if they're not, because the parents don't want to hear the truth. I always want to hear the truth from you, even if it's hard, even if it makes me angry or sad or scared. The truth is the only thing that matters. She nodded against my shoulder. We sat like that for a while, not talking, just being together. Della brought the tea, and we drank it slowly, the warmth spreading through my chest. Around noon, my phone started ringing. Fletcher. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately. Voicemail again. Then a text. We need to talk about this. You're ruining everything. I showed it to Della. She rolled her eyes. Block him. You're supposed to communicate through lawyers now anyway. She was right. I blocked Fletcher's number. 30 seconds later, a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. This is Fletcher on Corinne's phone. Answer me. Blocked that too. Another unknown number. You're being unreasonable. I'm trying to talk to you like an adult. How many phones does this guy have access to? Della muttered. I blocked the third number. Then I texted Thatcher, Fletcher is harassing me from multiple phone numbers. What should I do? He responded immediately. Document everything. Screenshot each message before blocking. If it continues, we can file for a restraining order. Don't engage with him at all. So that's what I did. Every time a new number popped up, I took a screenshot, sent it to Thatcher, then blocked it. The messages kept coming for about an hour. Angry texts about how I was poisoning Juniper against him, how I was overreacting, how I'd regret this. Then they stopped. Either he'd run out of phones, or Quincy had finally gotten through to him that this was only making things worse. That evening, we ordered Chinese food and ate it at Della's kitchen table. Juniper had seconds of everything, her appetite finally returning after days of barely eating. She laughed at something Della said, a real laugh, and I felt something in my chest release. She was going to be okay. It might take time, might take therapy, might take years of rebuilding trust, but she was going to be okay. Around 8, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized, Fletcher's mother, Juniper's grandmother. I hesitated, then answered. Sloan, it's Bertie. Hi, Bertie. I heard what happened. Fletcher called me from the courthouse. I wanted to reach out to you directly. I waited. Bertie had always been kind to me, even after the divorce. She'd never approved of Fletcher's drinking, had told me more than once that she wished he'd get help, but she was still his mother. Her loyalties were complicated. I want you to know I support what you did, she said. Taking Juniper out of that house, filing for custody, all of it. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. I met Corinne twice. Didn't care for her either time. Too concerned with appearances, not enough concerned with substance. And I told Fletcher that. Told him he was making a mistake, marrying someone who barely tolerated his daughter. He didn't listen. He never does. No, he doesn't. She sighed. I want to see Juniper. Is that possible? I know things are complicated right now, but I'm still her grandmother. Of course. Anytime you want. You're always welcome, Bertie. You know that. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll call you this week, and we'll set something up. And Sloan, you did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We hung up, and I felt another piece of tension release. Bertie's support mattered, not because I needed validation, but because Juniper needed to know that not everyone in Fletcher's family had abandoned her. Tuesday morning, life started returning to something resembling normal. I went back to work at the hospital. Juniper went back to school. I'd called her principal Monday afternoon to explain the situation, told her Fletcher was not allowed to pick Juniper up, and that only I or Della were authorized. The principal had been understanding, said she'd alert all the teachers and the front office. When I picked Juniper up that afternoon, she was chatty in the car, telling me about her day, about the math test she'd aced, about how her friend Elowen had invited her to a sleepover this weekend. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful, boring, normal kid stuff. Wednesday, the screenshots I'd sent Thatcher paid off. He filed a motion for a protective order preventing Fletcher from contacting me, except through our lawyers. The judge granted it within hours. No more harassing texts, no more calls from random numbers, just silence. Thursday evening, Della and Bertie came over for dinner. We made pasta and salad and garlic bread, and Juniper set the table like she was hosting a fancy party. She put out cloth napkins I didn't even know I owned, and arranged flowers from the bodega in a glass. Bertie brought a photo album, pictures of Fletcher as a kid, pictures of him and me from early in our relationship, pictures of Juniper as a baby. We sat on the couch after dinner and flipped through them. Juniper asked questions about each photo. What was Dad like as a kid? Where were we when this was taken? Why did Mom's hair look like that? Your dad was sweet when he was young, Bertie said. Sensitive, creative. He loved building things. Legos, model airplanes, birdhouses. He'd spend hours in the garage with his father, working on projects. What happened to him? Juniper asked. Bertie was quiet for a moment. Life happened. Expectations happened. His father wanted him to be more practical, more ambitious, pushed him into business school when Fletcher wanted to study architecture. I think he lost something of himself along the way, started drinking to cope with the stress, started making choices that weren't really his. That's sad, Juniper said. It is, but it doesn't excuse what he did, or didn't do. Understanding why someone hurts you doesn't mean you have to let them keep doing it. Juniper looked at the photo album, at a picture of Fletcher holding her when she was maybe 2 years old, both of them laughing at something off camera. I miss him sometimes, the dad from before, The one who used to read me stories and make up silly voices for all the characters? That dad's still in there somewhere, I said. Maybe he'll find his way back. Maybe he won't. But either way, you're going to be okay. You have people who love you and protect you and show up for you. That's what matters. She nodded, tracing her finger over the photo. Yeah, I know. Friday marked 1 week since everything exploded. 1 week since that text message. Since the drive to Fletcher's house. Since I'd grabbed that folder and marched into battle. It felt like months had passed. Like I'd lived an entire lifetime in 7 days. That evening, Juniper and I were making dinner together when someone knocked on the door. Not the aggressive banging from the CPS visit, just normal knocking. I looked through the peephole and my stomach clenched. Corinne. I stared through the peephole at Corinne standing in my hallway, holding what looked like a bakery box. She knocked again, softer this time, almost hesitant. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home, to let her stand there until she gave up and left. But another part, the part that needed answers, needed closure, made me open the door. I didn't invite her in, just stood in the doorway with my arms crossed. What are you doing here? I brought cookies. She held up the box awkwardly. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I didn't know what else to do. You could leave. That would be a good start. Sloan, please, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Behind me, I heard Juniper's footsteps. She appeared at my side, peeking around me at Corinne. Corinne's face changed when she saw her, something between shame and pain crossing her features. Hi, Juniper, she said quietly. Juniper didn't respond, just looked at her with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not anger, not fear, something more like disappointment. Baby, why don't you go finish chopping the vegetables? I said. I'll be right there. Juniper hesitated, then nodded and disappeared back into the kitchen. I stepped into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed behind me. You have 5 minutes. Corinne set the cookie box on the floor like she'd suddenly realized how absurd it was. I'm sorry for what I did, for hitting her, for losing my temper. I was wrong, and there's no excuse. You're right. There isn't. I grew up in a house where that kind of discipline was normal. My parents believed in physical correction. I know that's not an excuse, but it's the only explanation I have. I didn't think about it. I just reacted, and I immediately regretted it. But you didn't apologize to her. You doubled down, called her overdramatic, minimized what you did. I know. I was defensive. I was scared. Fletcher was angry, and I didn't know what to do. Fletcher was angry at you? She nodded. After you left with Juniper, he was furious. Said I'd ruined everything. Said you were going to take her away permanently and it was my fault. We fought about it all night. Good. You should have fought about it. What you did was wrong. I know that now. The court appearance, the judge's words, watching Fletcher try to defend me when he couldn't even look at himself. It woke me up. This isn't the person I want to be. This isn't the stepmother I want to be. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, that I see what I did, that I'm getting help. I started therapy this week, working through why I reacted that way, why I thought it was acceptable. Therapy's a good start, but it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the mark you left on my daughter's face. I know. Her eyes were wet now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. For Juniper, for Fletcher, for myself. We stood there in silence for a moment. Down the hall, someone's TV was playing too loud, a sitcom laugh track echoing through the walls. Does Fletcher know you're here? I asked. No. He'd be angry if he knew. He's been different since court. Quiet. Withdrawn. He barely talks to me. I think he blames me for everything falling apart. He should blame himself. He's the one who let it happen. You're right, but he doesn't see it that way. He sees it as everyone turning against him. You, the judge, his mother. He called Bertie after she visited you, and they had a huge fight. She told him he needed to take responsibility, and he hung up on her. That sounded like Fletcher. Always the victim. Always someone else's fault. Never his own choices coming home to roost. I should go, Corinne said. I've taken enough of your time. Just tell Juniper I'm sorry. If she ever wants to talk, if she ever wants to hear it directly from me, I'm here. She picked up the cookie box and handed it to me. These are chocolate chip. Her favorite, I think. Or at least I remember her mentioning it once. I took the box, Not because I wanted the cookies, but because refusing felt petty. Corinne, she stopped, turned back. If you're serious about being better, about being the kind of person Juniper deserves to have in her life, then actually do the work. Don't just go to therapy for a few weeks until things blow over. Really examine why you thought hitting a child was acceptable. Really change. Because if Fletcher gets more visitation time eventually, if the supervised visits end, Juniper will be around you again. And if anything like this happens again, if you so much as raise your voice to her in anger, I will bury you. Legally, publicly, completely. Do you understand? I understand. She met my eyes steadily. It won't happen again. I promise you that. She walked down the hallway toward the elevator. I watched until she turned the corner, then went back inside. Juniper was at the stove, stirring pasta sauce, trying to look like she hadn't been listening at the door. That was Corinne, I said, stating the obvious. I heard. She said she's sorry. Do you believe her? Juniper thought about it. I don't know. Maybe. She sounded like she meant it. People can mean it and still hurt you again. Sorry is just a word, unless it comes with real change. I know. She kept stirring, watching the sauce bubble. Do you think Dad will ever apologize? I don't know, baby. I hope so, but I can't promise that. It's okay. I don't think I want to hear it anyway. Not right now. We finished making dinner together. Pasta with marinara, the chocolate chip cookies for dessert. They were good cookies, I had to admit. Soft in the middle, crispy at the edges. Juniper ate 3 of them. That night, after Juniper was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with the court documents Thatcher had sent me. The protective order, the temporary custody modification, the schedule for the full evidentiary hearing in 8 weeks. I read through everything carefully, making notes, preparing myself for the next battle. Because this wasn't over. Fletcher would fight at the full hearing. Quincy would bring expert witnesses, character references, whatever they could find to paint me as vindictive and Fletcher as reformed. It would be ugly and expensive and exhausting, but I'd do it. For Juniper, for her safety, for the peace of mind that came from knowing she was protected. My phone buzzed with a text from Thatcher. How are you holding up? Okay, tired. Ready for this to be over. It will be. 2 months and you'll have permanent custody. I'm confident about that. What if we lose? We won't. But if we did, we'd appeal. Keep fighting until we won. That's what we do. I set my phone down and looked around my small, imperfect apartment, at the worn carpet and cracked tiles and second-hand furniture, at Juniper's artwork taped to the refrigerator and her shoes by the door and her backpack on the couch. This place wasn't much, but it was safe. It was ours, and that was worth fighting for. 2 months later, the full evidentiary hearing came and went. Thatcher was right. We won. Permanent primary custody with Fletcher getting supervised visitation every other Saturday. The judge's final words still echo in my mind sometimes. A parent's first duty is to protect their child. Mr. Calloway failed that duty until he demonstrates genuine understanding of that failure and takes meaningful steps to ensure it never happens again. This custody arrangement will remain in place. Fletcher didn't appeal. I think he finally understood that fighting would only make things worse. Or maybe he was just exhausted. Either way, the battle was over. Juniper adjusted better than I expected. The first few supervised visits were awkward, stilted conversations in a brightly colored room at the Family Resource Center with a social worker taking notes in the corner. But gradually, Fletcher started showing up differently. Less defensive, more present. Actually listening when Juniper talked instead of just waiting for his turn to explain himself. Birdie visits every other week. She takes Juniper to museums and parks and her favorite ice cream place. She never mentions Fletcher unless Juniper asks. And when Juniper does ask, Birdie answers honestly but kindly. Your dad loves you. Your dad made mistakes. Your dad is trying to be better. It's okay to have complicated feelings about that. Corinne sent one more message, about a month after she showed up at my door. Just a text saying she'd continued therapy, that she and Fletcher had started couples counseling, that she understood if Juniper never wanted to see her again, but she hoped someday they could have a relationship. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Maybe someday, years from now, Juniper would want to read it, or maybe she wouldn't. Either way was okay. As for me, I'm still working at the hospital, still living in the same apartment with the worn carpet and cracked tiles. Still fighting the small daily battles of single parenthood, but Juniper is safe. She laughs again. She signed up for art classes and joined the school soccer team. She talks about her feelings now, doesn't bottle everything up. She knows she's protected. She knows she's believed. She knows that when she asks for help, someone will show up. That night, standing at Fletcher's door with that folder in my hands, I didn't know how everything would turn out. I just knew I had to act, had to protect my daughter, had to show her that her safety mattered more than anything else in this world. And I'd do it again, every single time, without hesitation, because that's what love looks like. Not in grand gestures or perfect moments, but in showing up when it matters most, in choosing your child over comfort, in fighting battles you're not sure you can win because the alternative, doing nothing, is unthinkable. If you've ever had to make that choice, you already know. And if you haven't, I hope you never have to. But if you do, I hope you choose courage. I hope you choose your child, every single time. What would you do if faced with the same choice?